What is up, everyone? Welcome back to my channel, and in today's video we are going to be talking specifically about money. Now, in this video, I'll be sharing with you some of the discoveries and the lessons that I made after taking a 70% pay cut when I decided to quit my corporate job and become a part-time barista while I start my own business. Before I begin though, I need to give you a very important disclaimer that this video is for entertainment purposes only. In no way, shape, or form am I trying to give you financial advice. If you need that kind of stuff, go see a financial advisor. And also, I'm not trying to say that anyone can comfortably live off of minimum wage. That is not the intention of this video. Rather, the intention of this video is to really show you some of the big money mistakes that I made and how poorly I managed my finances so that I can help inspire you to maybe not do the same mistakes that I did. So to start off, if you are new to my channel, then you should probably know that this year I left my job at a corporate company where I was making $65K a year in order to pursue my dream of starting an online coaching business. And if you want to know more about my story in depth, then I highly encourage you to check out my videos here and here that are also in my channel. Now, to free up some cash flow and ensure that I'm able to make decisions for my business without freaking out about money, I actually took a part-time job as the barista at a local coffee shop right across my house. Now, I've been baristaing for a couple of months now, and as I was looking through my finances, I started to realize that I was actually saving more money at this part-time barista gig than I was when I was working full-time 9 to 5, or if anything, more than 9 to 5. Let's be real here. Making $65,000 a year. Now, why is that? So I started looking at the numbers and I found 4 major factors at play and really big lessons to be learned. The first being taxes. And I know some of you watching this video might think that that's a no-brainer, but for someone who's fresh out of university, is going into their first full-time job, taxes are probably the last thing that you're really thinking about. Now, to put things into perspective, based on my personal experience, when I took my full-time job making $65,000 a year, it seemed really nice on paper. But for me, my job was in Quebec, Canada. And in Quebec, the income taxes for my bracket was about 30%, meaning that 1/3 of my paycheck was automatically going to the government. And that's not even including the benefits and all the other deductions that were shaved off. So meaning that at the end of the day, when you do the math, it says $65,000 on paper, but in reality, what I was really making per year was about $40,000 after deductions and taxes and benefits and everything else that was basically leaving my paycheck. But not only did I learn that the more money you make, the more taxes that you have, I also learned the importance of location. Location plays a huge role in terms of how much you get taxed as well. For example, my hometown is in Vancouver, and if I had made $65,000 a year in Vancouver, my income taxes would have been about 23% versus in Quebec, where it's 30%. That's a 7% difference. That's quite big. So what exactly was the learning lesson here? Well, the learning lesson was not only the fact that if you make more money, you get taxed more money, but also when you are looking for jobs, pay very close attention to the locations that you're choosing. It's not just the income taxes that could be different. It could be the other taxes as well, such as property taxes, sales taxes. These little things, depending on your location, matter and can make a huge difference for when you're budgeting. So before you sign your job offer and get too excited about the big number that you see on paper, make sure that you're researching all the tax implications that could attribute to you making this type of money and to wherever you're moving to. Now, speaking of cost of living, you'll also probably want to think about the biggest expense that you could probably have, which is rent. Now, when I moved to Montreal, I had a lot of expenses, especially for someone who was just living on their own. And even though Montreal has one of the most affordable housing, I was still paying around $1,350 a month on rent and utilities and internet and everything like that. And if you actually take that monthly fee and multiply it by 12 months, that means that on a yearly basis, I was spending about $16,000 on rent alone. So remember what I said said about me only making $40,000 a year after taxes and deductions and everything, after rent, that means that I've only have $24,000 left in the bank to play with. And so now that I've moved back home, a lot of that burden of paying rent has actually been lifted from my shoulders, and I am extremely blessed to have that privilege. I also acknowledge that not everyone gets this privilege to be able to move back home with their parents and not have this expense to stress about. But what I'm trying to emphasize is that moving out as a young professional can be extremely expensive, especially when you start looking at it from a yearly perspective. When you look at these types of expenses on a monthly basis, it doesn't seem like much, but it really adds up. To put things into major perspective, rent alone was about 40% of my take-home income. So what exactly is the learning lesson here? Well, the learning lesson is make sure that you can actually afford your rent, and even after paying for your rent, that you still have money left over to save. And I know a lot of us millennials are so eager to move out of our parents' homes right after university and the moment we get our first job. But honestly, if you still have the privilege to live with your parents and have that major expense covered for you, then I highly recommend that you take advantage of it so that you can actually save the income that you're making at your first full-time job in order to save for a house in the long run. And if that's not an option, which I know for many of you it's really not, then strongly consider actually making compromises within your living situation, such as having roommates, or not being so stingy about all the requirements that you need to have in your first apartment. Do you really need a kitchen island? Do you really need marble tables? Do you really need a walk-in closet? A lot of those things aren't non-negotiables. Try to lessen your grip on those things and just have the patience to save money in the long term. Now, not only do us young professionals have rent to pay, but our personal expenses also increase dramatically, especially if you are living alone or getting your feet wet into a full-time workforce. When I worked at my corporate job in a different city, my personal expenses were actually 4 times more than my expenses versus when I lived at home going to university, or even when I'm living at home now working as a barista and starting my own business. For example, when I was a young professional, not having a lot of energy, nor did I have time, I actually spent a lot of my money on food, because I never made my own meals, which was a huge mistake. And not only this, I also bought an average of 2 to 3 coffees a day at work. And this isn't just your regular drip coffee, it was coffee from places like Tim Hortons and Starbucks. And on top of that, they were the fancy drinks. They were the mochas, the matchas, all of these specialty drinks that I just kept buying 2 to 3 times a day. With an average coffee like that being about $5, that's about $10 a day, $50 a week, and $200 a month on coffee at work alone. And on top of that, I was also buying my lunch almost every day at work, and because I was staying late at work, I'd also have to buy dinner as well. This means that on top of all of the coffees that I was buying, I was spending about $500 on food alone, totaling to $700 on food and beverages a month, meaning that I was really spending $8,400 yearly on food and drinks, which then leaves me to about $15,000 left in my bank account. So what is the big learning lesson here? Well, the learning lesson is quite obvious. Food and coffee adds up, especially when you are stressed out and you turn to food or beverages for comfort. Or if you are so overworked that you lack the energy to actually put systems in place where you are meal prepping, cooking, and bringing your own food to work. Because if I could go back in time after crunching all of these numbers, I'd probably want to work on having more discipline on meal prepping and actually bringing all of my meals to work, or even bringing my own Nespresso machine to work or something, so that I don't have to constantly pay for coffee over and over again at places like Starbucks. And I'm sure that if I had implemented things like these, and if I actually had that reality check at the time, I'd probably be able to decrease this expense by about 50%. Last but not least, I also want to talk about the expenses that aren't exactly tied to your survival. So not the expenses that require you to put a roof on top of your head, nor putting food and drinks into your stomach. Now for me, when I lived on my own, working at a job that gave me a lot of stress and anxiety, I found my escape and my relief through shopping and traveling. Every weekend, I would really find myself being a potato in bed and just scrolling through all these online fast fashion retailers in hopes of buying things that would make me feel better inside. I also had a habit of buying designer items, and when I look back on that experience, I know that these habits came from being unhappy and desperately looking for that band-aid solution in order to get instant gratification and instant happiness to fix the shitty situation that I found myself in. And as a result, every single month my credit card bill was in its thousands. On top of this, because I was in a whole different city, I also traveled often to go see my boyfriend and my family. And many times I would book these trips last minute because it was due to stress and it was due to just me wanting to escape right now on the weekend because I didn't want to deal with things anymore. And each ticket from across the country to another costed about $700 to $800 each, and that really added up to my expenses as well. But anyways, that means that with my $15,000 that I've saved so far at my job when I was working corporate, and with my average visa bill being about $1,000 a month, and I'm saying 1,000 very lightly, you can kind of do the math and see that I didn't really save much when I was working at my full-time corporate job, making a decent salary at $65,000 a year. So what exactly is the moral of this video? Well, the moral of this video is I want to show you that it doesn't matter how much money you make if you can't save it. Because earning $65K a year meant nothing if I was only taking home about $5K after the year ended. And I'm not trying to convince anyone in this video that being a barista is better. Trust me, it's really not. But what I am trying to tell you is that your earnings don't mean squat if you don't know how to budget and if you don't know how to make smarter money decisions. The second thing that I want to show is to ask you guys the question of what do you value most right now in your life? Is it money, time, or is it experience? If you're straight out of school and you need that experience, then take that job that's going to challenge you. They might not be paying you shit, but that experience is priceless. If you are looking for time, but also needing cash flow on the side, then take a job that doesn't require you to be there from 9 to 5, that doesn't require you to take work home, that doesn't require you to exert so much mental energy that when you get home, you can't work on your dream. Or if it's money that you need right now, then find the job that allows you to live the life that you want to afford, to live the lifestyle that you dream about. You might not be having a lot of experience working at that job. You might not feel fulfilled when you work at that job, but at the end of the day, you're making the money that you need to survive. So again, guys, it all goes down to what you value and what you're looking for and what your personal goals are when you are looking for a job. And also, especially if you are a millennial, then make sure that you actually take the time to be smart about your money. Don't just think about the short-term wins that you can get. Think about your long-term vision for your life and what you can do today to meet your expectations of that big, grandiose vision that you have for yourself in the long term, especially with your finances. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed the 4 major money lessons that I learned that I wanted to share specifically if you are a millennial. If you found any of these tips helpful, make sure to let me know by dropping a like on this video. And if you want to see more of my content, then make sure that you stay subscribed. Anyways, thank you so much again. I hope you guys have a great day, have a great week, have a great life, and I'll see you in the next one.